The voice of sharing, Durian ASEAN.
Hey, this is Arlene.
Hi, this is Gowri. You're listening to our ABC News this morning.
Yes, ABC stands for ASEAN Big First Call, and today we are excited because for the Indonesian election, guess what? Who won the election? Although we already knew like quite some time ago. So it was officially announced at 4 o'clock yesterday that the winner of the Indonesia's president election was Jokowi.
Yeah, and a lot of people are very happy about it, and it seems that they've already predicted that Jokowi was gonna win. Everyone except Prabowo in that sense.
Oh, we will explain more about Prabowo later, but even me as Malaysian, I was very excited about Jokowi's
Yeah, even a
winning
lot
it.
of my Facebook feeds, like I didn't even know some people were actually following the elections, and suddenly this
Your
morning
Malaysian
they're
friend,
like,
you mean?
yeah, like my Malaysian friends, and they were all like, "Oh, Jokowi won," and I'm like, "Oh, okay, wow."
I mean, it's pretty. I think it's pretty uplifting for us Malaysian because we have been waiting for the moment, for that
Hmm.
Obama we will change moment for so
Right.
long,
Hmm.
and but it's still like happening in a very, slow paced manner. It's not like it's not happening, but it's happening quite slow pace. Well, Indonesia, their election
Hmm.
suddenly, out of like nowhere. Although they had a few presidential election, like I think there was three presidential
Yeah,
election in the
three
past,
before this.
and the fourth one is interesting because you see like a clear shift from like the old Indonesia, which is still in transition. After the Suharto's after the Suharto's downfall,
Mhm.
and you can see like with Jokowi, it's like, oh, everyone is looking forward. It's like salam dua jari. Dua jari is for supporters of Jokowi, they would say that,
Hmm.
to say that they are supporting Jokowi.
And we are also living vicariously through them in a way because they've already got their reformation, they've got their Obama now, but we are still waiting for ours. But while we wait, we are still very happy for them that they have managed to get there, and hopefully next will be us, that we will be able to elect someone who can actually
And who is from the grassroots, like
right,
if
someone
you
would
look at.
actually go down and
Mhm.
actually mix with the people, talk to the people, and fix things like on the spot, as
Uh-huh.
opposed to saying, "Oh, I'm gonna do this if you vote for me. I'm gonna do that." It's like the same old thing over and over again.
I mean, Jokowi proved it with his job as a mayor
Mm.
of Jakarta in the past. He has always been a hands-on person. He's not the type that, oh, this is too like grassroots for me, or I don't want to get my hands dirty.
Hmm.
He always believed that you got to fix things from the ground up,
Hmm.
and I mean, of course, is he's not perfect. I think he does have some weaknesses on certain areas where I think he might not have that experience. For example, foreign policy, and
Hmm.
also maybe issues that is more on a national scale like security and all that. But I still have hope with Jokowi. I think that he would be a very brilliant politician also, and also a president for Indonesia. I really looking forward for
Yeah,
him.
he has been uh, projecting himself as a very good role model. He's different, like from the rest, like what you mentioned as well. He actually goes down to the ground, and he understands that it works from down to up, not from up to down in a way. Especially if you wanna, he's actually looking to go for a mental revolution, and one of his biggest objective is to reform the mentality of the Indonesians, and he wants to have a more proactive uh, approach of doing things, and he's definitely leading by example, I
Mm.
think.
I think it's great that he's inspiring society, not just like in terms of election promises
Hmm.
or physical changes like economic progress and better quality of living and all that, but also in terms of ideological shift from the old Indonesia
Hmm.
towards a more like um,
Hmm.
matured and also open and also Indonesia that looks forward for the future generations of its society. So I think this is something that is new for Indonesia, but I believe that like once Indonesia is there, even though it's right now it is the biggest economy in the world, but I think not in Southeast Asia, but I think in the future it will be even better than that, and it will play a key leading role definitely. Whatever that is happening in Indonesia, it will affect the functioning and also um the way forward for ASEAN.
That's interesting. I actually read an article yesterday where the writer was debating if you want to make some changes in your country as the leader, as the prime minister, president, whatever it is that is your title. If you really want to go for some solid reformation, what do you focus on? Do you focus on education or do you focus on your military power? And so they were using US as an example, how US was focused more on military defense and all. But going back to Indonesia, I think Jokowi is actually going for education. He's trying to emphasize that education is actually the solution to all the problem, because it has to start from when they are very, very young. You shape them, you turn them into thinkers, you turn them into problem solvers, and then they grow up with that kind of attitude, as opposed to just like cakap kosong, you know.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Education is definitely one of the key foundation. But I think also, I mean, from my perspective, institution reform is also needed. I think a lot of Indonesians institution sometimes can really hinder the progress of its nation. The similar, I mean, I'm talking this with in mind that Malaysia is also facing the same problem when it comes to our institution. It's too burgeoning, and the fact that certain institution has become too bureaucratic and has taken over in some ways the individual lives of society. 2 days ago, we attended a talk on religious freedom and also how the Indonesia's election will affect the religious freedom in the country. And it seems like, I mean, both candidates, they are, even though they still have that idea that of pluralism, of racial harmony in mind, but at the same time, I think I don't think they are unable to dismantle entirely the institutions that was being built by their predecessor. And I think religion is a very sensitive issue that a lot of them might not be able to go and take the unpopular path in terms of trying to set a more secular agenda for the country. So, yeah.
And another interesting update on this matter is that Prabowo has actually admitted to his abduction accusations in the past.
Adoption?
Abduction, sorry.
I see.
Apparently back then when he was in charge, he kidnapped a lot of people and
That was during Suharto regime,
yeah,
right?
yeah, that's right. But he has been denying it for a while. But turns out yesterday, for some reason, he just came up and he came clean about it. That yes, I did it. I did all those kidnappings because that was part of my job at that time.
Well, I mean, even if it's part of his job, I think he should come clean earlier. I don't think he should come clean after after the election itself. I mean, I mean, he's right in a way that he's in a very difficult situation at that time during the Suharto regime. I mean, during the Suharto regime, he really utilizes the military forces as part of the country's ruling. So in that sense and he was one of the key people, And also he's married to the daughter of Suharto as well. So even though it's an acceptable excuse, but at the same time, I still feel that personally, if I want to talk about Indonesia in the next 10 years, I wouldn't have think of him. I think he belongs in the past. He's more relevant in the past than in the future than for the future of Indonesia. I mean, if I look at him, he's very conservative, which is good in some ways for those who wants to maintain the status quo. But if you're looking for Indonesia that wants democracy as the main foundation of its country, I don't think he's able to deliver that sort of mental revolution, if I want to say.
Which is probably why he's not as popular as Jokowi, especially among the younger generation of Indonesia, because the younger generation are usually the ones who are so passionate about going for a turnover in the country, going for some sort of a revolution that they want things to change. And
Mhm.
whereas he's more of a, okay, I can just preserve everything that we've achieved so far. I will take care of things, keep them as they are. And turns out that's not actually what people want. We don't want things to be as they are. We want things to get better. We want things to move forward. And I think we can relate it back to Malaysia as well. When BN did their manifesto, they said, hey, look, our country has been like this the whole time. And if you keep voting for us, we'll keep it like that. But that's not what we want. We don't want to maintain what we have. We want to get better. We want to be more competitive. We want to stand out. We want to be the best of the best.
Mhm. I think maybe that's the reason why he quit. He quitted the presidential election.
Mhm.
And what about the case of he wanting to press charges towards a legal challenge to the result? I think he wasn't happy about being close. Being the loser in the race, and somehow it's a very closely contested race.
Right.
So,
Apparently, Jokowi only won by 3%, so it was 53 to 47. And I think the charges, we kind of saw that coming based on the video that we were talking about, when he said he's not going to give up. He said he deserves to win and he has to win. This is his country and she should be in charge of it. So yes, I'm not sure how far has the charges gone. Has he actually filed a case and all?
I think I'm not sure how it will go in what is being reported right now.
But is
He's
that
planning
actually
to do.
acceptable in Indonesia, that you can just accuse the election committee of I don't know, cheating or
Well, I think probably it's possible
Mhm.
to post a legal challenge, but to quit the election, I'm not too sure about it. I think in any closely contested election, there would be a situation where the loser of the race would probably feel that in some ways it can be it should be a much more cleaner election, and I think that's the part that he wants to contest. And I mean, we've seen it before. I think it was in a couple of a few years ago during the
Mm.
President Bush election. He was uh at the time he was in a close race with, I think, was it John Kerry, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember the candidate at that time, and it was a very very tight uh,
Race?
race to the
Mhm.
extent that at one point at the end the newspaper have to change their topic several times within
Oh.
that span of like probably 6 hours throughout the midnight. And but at the end of the day, George W. Bush
Bush.
win
Yeah.
because uh, of the decision of of the court, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so in another way, I mean, I think he has the right to do that for
Mhm.
Prabowo to challenge the results. But I'm not sure about the quitting part anyway. Um, but talking about him contesting the vote, apparently Indonesia's stock and rupiah slump afterwards. I think people, I mean, foreign investors are a bit more reluctant towards
Mhm.
Indonesia when they hear that Indonesia will be in a situation where there's no clear winner yet.
Mhm.
So I think that might affect us a bit of Indonesia's economy.
That's probably part of his agenda as well, trying to slow things down and delay it as long as possible.
Hmm.
Right?
Yeah, apparently so. And so moving on from Indonesia, we talk about Thailand. So Thailand to reclaim top rice exporter spot after poor Indian rains. So apparently, the biggest rice exporter now is
Mhm.
our neighbor Thailand.
Yeah. Well, I guess it used to be us, like a long, long time ago. But
Apparently, I guess so. I mean, we used to be more into its agricultural, I
Mhm.
think probably during the 70s and prior to that. But after that, especially after the new economic policy
Mhm.
and especially during Mahathir's time where he wants to focus more on
Yeah.
industrialization, we stopped focus on um our agriculture. So I guess our neighbor Thailand has taken over us, and of course he has taken over India. It's quite it's quite I would say, what's the right word to say it? Um, Ironic that India is such a huge country, but Thailand can surpass it.
Mm. Well, I think it's also because of the monsoon, uh, uh, weak monsoon rains curb India's crop, and also helping what you call Thailand, the country's new military government, offload bulging stockpiles. And according to a few Indian exports,
Mm-hmm.
sorry, fewer Indian exports would allow Bangkok to win better prices for the grain that it has been selling at a huge discount, curbing business losses on the stocks built up under a costly state intervention scheme.
Mm-hmm. So they also lose out in terms of the pricing part. Um, but personally, I actually like both of the rice quality of Indian rice and also Thailand's rice. I think Thailand's rice are very fragrant, while the Indian rice, I think it's called basmati rice, if I'm not mistaken, is really good. If you make it into like biryani and all that. I don't know. But I'm quite disappointed in
Okay.
the quality of our Malaysian rice. I think we have like the worst quality of rice. It's always it's tasteless and it's full of gluten and all that. I don't think I can fathom it.
Okay. Well, I haven't exactly been experimenting with different types of rice, or maybe I'm just immune to it because,
Mm-hmm.
we have rice our whole lives. But yeah, I guess the Indian rice does have a very good reputation in Malaysia as well,
Mm-hmm.
especially for its health benefits that comes with the basmati rice. Apparently, it's a lot healthier for you to take that kind of rice compared to the others.
I really fall in love with basmati rice. I think right after I discovered Middle Eastern cuisine. Apparently,
Mhm.
in Middle Eastern cuisine, rice is a very important component
Mhm.
in that, to the extent that you don't use cheap quality rice to eat together with some of really popular Arabic and Persian dishes. So that's where I discovered that, oh, basmati rice is actually really tasty. I don't know about you, but I'm in love with basmati rice, and I'm also in love with Thailand's fragrant rice. I think
Okay.
it's very nice. Actually, you eat it with Thailand's cuisine. I mean, their dishes is really really tasty.
I'm actually kind of really sick of rice. When you just eat it ever since you can remember, actually up
Mhm.
until now, you just get so tired of it that I just don't even want to think about rice anymore.
Well, talking about rice, it's quite interesting because if you really want to have a topic about rice, it's not a subject that you can easily
Mm.
discuss about it because it's very apparently it's quite complex as well. For example, in Japan, they don't even import rice.
Mm.
They produce their own rice for themselves. The same with South Korea as well, and also their rice are of good quality, the ones that they think they can consume it themselves. While in Malaysia, apparently during Badawi's time, he was keen on on reforming the agricultural sector. In other words, to have a more um, efficient and I guess a bigger sector
Mhm.
in agriculture. And I thought it was a great move, but um, his reign was not that long, so
Mhm.
I don't think the Najib continue his
And also, I think a
policy.
lot of people actually didn't get the rationale behind that because, like you said, after Mahathir time, everything became too modern, too industrialized, and Badawi was actually trying to bring us back to what we are, I would say, really good at, and what is our strength, which is like, of course, rice production back then. But a lot of people saw that as him being weak, that he couldn't innovate, that he couldn't think beyond the
Mhm.
box as well.
And I think I want to add more on what you say as well.
Mm.
Actually, during that particular time period, the global world was facing the issue of food security. I
Mm-hmm.
still remember pictures of Egyptian trying to queue up, and it was a long queue, and people were so angry for just a piece of bread, because bread is their
Mm.
staple. so I was thinking like you cannot just focus on industrialization. You got to balance out with commodities as well, and rice is one of the important commodities. Let's say I mean this won't possibly happen, but let's say
Mm-hmm.
Thailand put a sanction on rice
Right.
against us, like, and we cannot produce our own rice. How can society even survive? I mean, a lot of the Malaysian cuisine involve rice. Even our famous noodles are rice based as well. For
Mm-hmm.
example, laksa and bihun.
And even nasi lemak.
And even nasi lemak. Yeah, that's the thing. So I think a balanced policy between commodity like agricultural policies and also industrialization of services and all that is definitely you need to find the right balance so that
Mm-hmm.
you can counter issues like food security and all that. So anyway, from rice we move to railway. To railway. So Chinese railway in Myanmar scrap. Apparently, it was reported in Bangkok Post, a planned rail project to give China access to the Indian Ocean through Myanmar has been cancelled due to strong public objections and delays, a senior official said on Tuesday.
So these two countries had failed to implement the contract for a 1,215-kilometer railway between western Myanmar's Arakan state and the Chinese city of Kunming within 3 years of memorandum of understanding signed in April 2011. And opponents criticized this $20 billion project for displacing too many communities, but and some political parties and ethnic groups objected to it on the grounds of risk to national security.
Hmm. Interesting, interesting.
So this is another case of displacing people, displacing community for, I guess, the benefit uh, of just making profit, making
Mm.
money out of this.
But I think this time is a bit more complex because it's
Mm-hmm.
not about the Myanmar government, it's about China.
Mm-hmm.
And I think China has been exerting its power, whatever power it is, economic, politics, military, and all that towards Southeast Asia. And Myanmar, I think, is the next victim of it. Talking about the railway, I think I mean, Myanmar is a very mineral-rich country. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
similar to a lot of Southeast Asian nation. So I think China is trying to take advantage of that and trying to expand its economic income, I would say.
But what, maybe I'm not too clear, like what exactly could the benefits be if China gives access to Myanmar?
China give access to Myanmar or Myanmar give
As in,
access.
if they actually implement this railway.
I think this railway project will definitely bring in more um, um, cheaper means, in fact, for China to transport some of its commodity.
Mm-hmm.
I think in the past they have I mean they have already been um, mining coal, what else? Lumber and also oil and gas. So I think
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to Myanmar is, I mean, the world is Myanmar is their oyster. They can get anything with the building of the railway. Or not, it will be quite expensive to go, via the seaport.
So this is actually for China to actually go to the Indian Ocean through Myanmar. So it's another uh, what do
Mm-hmm.
I say, water or uh, territorial waters. I maybe it's not a dispute yet, but it was probably heading in that direction.
Yeah, it is definitely heading towards that direction, and I think national security is a huge concern
Mm-hmm.
among countries in Southeast Asia. Uh, you will never know the very next day, China could probably exert its military forces
Mm-hmm.
towards individual countries in Southeast Asia if none of the countries in Southeast Asia want to have a consensus on how they can treat China collectively, it is very hard for Southeast Asia to defend themselves individually. And eventually, US will be in the bigger picture, and you would not want the US to interfere with with the dealings of Southeast
Mm-hmm.
Asia. I don't think it's healthy as well. I think ASEAN should be much more credible as in like it has to be a strong force against any external threats.
And also, I guess when it comes to displacing communities, that always creates too many problems. Probably even worse problems for the government in the long run, like what happened in Brazil for the World
Mm-hmm.
Cup, where they had to displace so many people. And there was this one very disturbing photo I saw, where there's the beautiful picture of the stadium in the background, and just in front of it was just two very poor people who didn't even have money to buy clothes, and they're just living like probably less than a kilometer from the stadium.
Wow.
So I guess there is no balance, like you mentioned earlier. It's either this, or it's just profit all the way.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's also because ASEAN, I mean, I have to
Mhm.
mention ASEAN here. ASEAN's original goal has always about economic progress rather than having a more holistic focus. But
Mhm.
if it is going to move towards from merely economic progress to ASEAN community, as in like, it includes the environment, the society as
Mhm.
well, it has to think beyond just economic gains. So, talking about Myanmar as well, I think there's another news about rape accusation that sparked in the country that I mentioned is actually false. And a rape accusation against two Muslim men appears to be false. The government-run newspaper New Light of
Mhm.
Burma reports.
Yeah, I think I I guess you weren't here on Monday when we talked about how this one woman said she was actually paid to make this report that these
Mm.
two men raped her, and they saw it as a way to create more conflict, create more problems in the country.
Mm-hmm.
But then she actually they had all these investigations, and they said, oh, it's false, like she was just paid to do it. So I guess now it's
But
actually not false. Yeah.
apparently that one accusation has caused violence, which lasted for 3 days in Mandalay and left 20 injured. That's a very serious accusation, it seems like. And is and although the woman has been arrested after medical reports stated that they did not find any traces or evidence of rape. But at the same time, we can't help to see that religious violence during the last 2 years in the country has actually taken lives of at least 280 people. It's like a similar amount of the MH70 17 list of passengers, and it has left 14,000 individuals displaced. So, in a way, I guess religious fundamentalism is growing much more deeper in Myanmar, to the extent that Wiratu, which is a nationalist monk and the leader of 969 movement, was among many who accused the man of rape. So many see his actions as major catalyst to the violence in the country. Anyway, anyway, Gowri.
Yes.
Um, this is the end of our report, but I guess for Myanmar, we really hope that peace will definitely prevail.
Yes, we definitely wish them all the best, especially for their upcoming elections next year. We hope they get things sorted out as soon as possible.
We hope that they will have another Jokowi
Yeah, sure.
implanted in Myanmar. Anyway, if you want to follow us on Facebook and Twitter, if you want to know more about the news about Myanmar and Indonesia and all these other Southeast Asian countries, you can always subscribe to us, provide us comment to our social media, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. And of course, you can listen to us live at durenasian.com, or you can listen to us at your mobile by downloading the TuneIn app and listen to us at www.durenasian.com. So we will continue back with more stories from Blast from the grassroots. And um, adios.